We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marisol. So good morning, everybody. It's just wonderful to be here for the Sunday gathering. It's just always a joy to see all of your faces. I am here with one of my best friends in the world. My mom's best friend, Marilyn. Here, I'll show you Marilyn. Give him a wave, Marilyn. So what we do in the beginning is what we do the whole time. We just give gratitude, but what we do in form is we welcome each other, just like we would if this was a pew. We reach across the aisle, we say good morning, we give each other a hug. But we do that on the chat board while Marisol plays our opening song. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And this is the part where I read the statement of purpose and the core value that we're going to focus on today. And awakening together's purpose. We are an assembly of equals, joined in a common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and rest in its embrace. So there's really two core values that today is going to be focused on. And the first is one that I'm very familiar with, and you all are too, because it's really the core. Like Regina has mentioned, it's perhaps what distinguishes us from other spiritual communities. I'm sure there may be some that have this value, but this is really at the core of what we value, which is core value number 3, which is that we accept one truth, one true self, which is one presence, one being, non-dual, without beginning or end, and absolutely changeless. And we live this value by practicing letting go of the belief in the individual self as who we are. And also what today is going to touch on, I think, is core value 4, which is we affirm one true self as the only truth. Right? So we affirm one true self as the sole truth, the only truth. So we live this value by embracing what is helpful on the path of awakening without idolizing any spiritual doctrine, right? Or any spiritual practice as truth. And so that's what we'll have a chance to take a look at today. And now I do a smooth segue to announcements. Thank you, my friend. So this is when we shift to the devotional part of the service, and do this by asking Marisol to play her first song. But let me just introduce it by saying that I'm not Reverend Abigail is now doing a program prior to this. And she said, I thought I was going to read from Inner Romana, but all of a sudden, Corinthians just came in, and, I'm not at all surprised because you will recognize Corinthians in our first song. So thank you, Marisol. Thank you. So now we move to an invocation, prayer, and I'd love to share with you that the prayer that came when I first tried to do 500 days with NTI in 2020. I'm doing it again now, but this is the prayer that came at that with that study. At the very beginning, Regina invites us all to get in touch with what we truly desire. And This is what was written. Let me remember that I must accept the love of Christ in order to understand the symbols. Let me accept that life is an endless parade of symbols. Let me prepare myself to accept that love by recognizing I do not understand the symbol, and then ask for understanding. Let me recognize when I have forgotten love. Let me then ask that its remembrance be given in grace and love. Let me trust that all appearances can be trusted, that all is well. And I ask this on behalf of all, and in particular, all of the members of this Sangha, some of whom are going through extremely challenging circumstances right now. And we hold them in our heart. We trust. We trust that all appearances can be trusted. We trust that all is well. And that we need do nothing but remain mindful of our own desire to not know, to keep letting go of knowing and predicting and fixing and helping and thinking that we know. We just need do nothing but be mindful of our emptiness, that love never fails, that love always perseveres, and that love not only rejoices in the truth, but leads us to that truth. Because the truth is, we are love. Amen. Okay, so now we have a reading by a member, and the member today is Fran Hamilton, who I just had the pleasure of meeting and spending the 4 days in the retreat with. And so I'm just so thrilled that she's been willing to read this morning. She's going to read from Angelo DiLullo's book, Awake, It's Your Turn. So I'm going to hand this over to Fran. Thank you again.
Thank you. Our reading today includes excerpts from Chapter 8. The title is Practices and Techniques. And we begin on page 130. When it comes to the subject of awakening, it can be immensely valuable to investigate the most basic assumptions we have about ourselves, about life, and about reality. When it comes to utilizing various techniques and practices, it is similarly valuable to begin by clarifying why we are applying specific techniques, what we are expecting to get out of them, and whether we recognize their limitations and potential drawbacks. In this spirit, I'd like to begin this section by posing a basic question about techniques and practices when it comes to awakening. Do you need practices and techniques to awaken to your true nature? Hopefully, by now, you won't be surprised when I tell you the answer is both yes and no. No, your true nature is your true nature. It has never gone anywhere. It never could go anywhere. You have never been 1 millimeter away from the truth of what you are, of what everything is. True nature permeates your conscious experience of all times, at all times. That which is aware of what you're reading right now. It makes up everything you see, feel, hear, taste, and smell. It is the effortless fluctuation and movement of everything in your experience. It is the unassailable stillness right here and right now. It is not even an it, because it is nothing apart from, because there is nothing apart from it to call it an it. It simply is. There is only this body world universe, seemingly self-expressing and dissolving with perfect clarity and precision. You can't lose it, thus you can't regain it. How could it be possible that you need a tool or a method to regain something that could never be lost? Everything in immediate experience is on fire with the radiance of living truth at this very moment. And also, yes, everyone I know of that is woken up to their true nature has done a good amount of practice of one type or another. However, the timing and types of practices and how they are applied vary tremendously among practitioners. The best way I can explain this seeming contradiction is to say that our nervous systems are particularly good at maintaining momentum. Without needing to remind them to do so, they will perpetuate ingrained patterns and neurological processes that make up our internal experience. This is especially true of the patterns of thought that create the ongoing experience of separation. Separation can never be found outside of thought, so we can't blame our perceptions of division, isolation, and thus struggle on reality. It's not reality's fault that we look at it through veils we constantly create with thoughts and preconceptions. So, what is a practice? Simply stated, it is the act of unpracticing these habituated tendencies that cause us to perceive reality as divided into subjects and objects, pasts and futures, and problems and solutions. When we slow down this momentum of the mind, we begin to remember experientially what it is to be unbound, vast, and intimate with all of existence. In short, to practice is to undo habituated mental patterning. In short, to practice is to undo habituated mental patterns that cause us to suffer. As long as there is a sense of a self apart, the one struggling to get life right, to wake up and to solve the problem of being a suffering human being, then directing the effort that arises out of that sense to an investigation of your true nature is a valuable undertaking. Now, moving over to the 3 bullets on page 133. 1, qualities of a good practice. A good practice puts attention on what is immediately happening, thoughts, emotions, and sensory experiences. 2, qualities of less effective practice. A less than ideal practice puts attention onto something that's not immediately happening. The past, the future, ideals, plans, solutions. 3, it is generally best to practice with no immediate goal, meaning don't judge a practice or technique on the immediate experience or look for a result. We all bring a certain misconception to practice, that we are practicing to cause something to happen. This is a perfectly natural perception, and it's not the only motivation we bring to practice. But if unrecognized, it can cause us unnecessary confusion. We might be expecting practice to cause relaxation, a peaceful or transcendent state, clarity, understanding, or even awakening. We may or may not be fully aware that we have these expectations. If we aren't fully aware of these expectations, we might notice we feel discouraged or frustrated with practice at times. If this occurs, then it can be helpful to ask ourselves, What am I expecting from this practice? If you ask and then get really quiet, you often find the answer. It is usually something like, I've been feeling stressed. I was hoping meditation would make me relax. This simply means we are experiencing the emotion called disappointment. Once we recognize this, we have the opportunity to feel and accept the presence of that emotion. That example shows how our unexamined beliefs about practice can really color our perceptions of practice. What we perceived to be a failed meditation experience, when examined more closely, turns out to be a successful meditation experience. Meditation allowed an emotion we weren't in contact with to come to the surface so we could accept it into our experience. Revealing that hidden expectation and then feeling the underlying emotion will often relax any struggle we are having with our practice. In these moments, it can be helpful to remind yourself of the following. Realization is and does not need to be cultivated, learned, attained, or achieved. It is already here. Undivided, pristine reality is simply the case. It is the case for you at every moment, and it is not a state. So there's no need to get attached to states or conclude that certain states occurring or imagined during practice is the goal. No experience is preferable. No state is a mark of progress. This is not about progress. This is about seeing and feeling things as they are without the distortions of preference and expectation. Now we move to the top of page 135. Approach to practices and techniques. What is the value of practice? Realization is seeing things exactly as they are, without adding or subtracting. Practice is a way of undoing unconscious habits that lead us to see things as they are not. On this basis, practice is subtractive more than it is additive. Here are a few general approaches that will help to know when and how to apply practices most effectively. Now to the top of page 136, where intention meets surrender. There is a part of us that wants to know the truth. It wants to live the truth. This is the part of us that wants to dig in and uproot delusions that keep us thinking and acting in ways that make us suffer. It wants to wake up from the illusion that we are separate, isolated beings who continually struggle only to achieve occasional relief. I might call this our natural inclination to live in truth and to dispel illusion. This intention is powerful. When it is prevalent in our experience, it is truly a blessing. However, it's not the whole story. There is another side to things. This is a side to us that has no intention. It is always at rest. This side of us wants to open to the moment and let life permeate us. It wants to let life overtake us. It is naturally attuned to the mysterious and to the unknowable. It trusts surrender. It even trusts suffering. Most of us will tend toward one or the other of these instincts, but all of us can find both if we are willing to look. It might take some practice, patience, and contemplation, but it can be done. If you are able to find both of these aspects of your interface with reality, then you have found that sweet spot where practice becomes immensely powerful. Remaining in that place where intention meets surrender will set your practice and your life on fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Beautifully read. Thank you. Yeah. It may take some practice, patience, and contemplation, but it can be done. If you are able to find both of these aspects of your interface with reality, then you have found that sweet spot where practice becomes immensely powerful. Remaining in that place where intention meets surrender. Intention plus surrender. That's the formula. It will set your practice and your life on fire. Yes, this is me, humbly. Okay. I'm going to read the title for today. Here's the title. From Inhibited to Inhabiting. Trusting true nature. And I'm going to read you the description. This is what I want to talk about. As Angelo DiLullo writes, as Fran just read, when it comes to the subject of awakening, right, the purpose that we're all joined in, awakening to one true self, it can be immensely valuable to investigate the most basic assumptions we have about ourselves, about life, and about reality. So the description I wrote goes on. While most spiritual students will nod and agree with this, and they'll mean it, many often have no idea how to actually practice this pointing. And of course, that many is me. It was me in the beginning, right? So I write, how exactly can we undertake such an investigation in a sustained and intentional way, given our busy and full lives? Moreover, how is it even possible to investigate that which we are often not even aware of, right? These hidden assumptions. So in this week's message, I will share how I lucked into a very direct practice early on in my spiritual journey, which not only exposed my own deepest assumptions, but allowed them little by little to be brought fully into consciousness and hence begin to weaken. So I'll start at the beginning. So 8 years ago, right now, the pictures just came up in my, if we had more time, I'd show you some pictures. I'll finish the sentence first. 8 years ago today, I met Regina, I met Jacqueline, I met Kate, I met Manuela. We had this pilgrimage to India, and I met all of them. And so what popped up this morning is this picture of Jacqueline leaning over like this. And there's this beamy little Indian girl that's just telling her everything about everything she could possibly say. We're in this temple, and Jacqueline's just leaning over in joy, just listening to this little girl. I remember just telling her everything. Jacqueline's like, okay, just right there with her, right? There's something about the places we were, at least, that the children just found you. And they just wanted, what's your name? What's your name? And then they wanted to tell you their name, and they wanted you to practice it. And then it was just joy everywhere. As Cindy talked about, when you do what's natural, joy comes. Okay. So 8 years ago, I meet everyone, and just had just an incredible experience. What I heard Regina say, and I've shared this before, but what I heard her say is that you don't have to believe any thought that comes into your mind just because it's in your mind. You don't have to believe the thoughts that are in your mind. And I don't know how I knew that she knew that. I don't know how I knew I could trust her, but I knew she knew it. I knew it was true. I knew I could trust her. And what I quickly knew is I had no idea how to do that, because every thought in my mind seemed like, this is just how it is. And I gotta deal with it. Like I just went right to reaction mode. I didn't know I was in reaction mode, right? Stimulus response, right? This is where our freedom is. Our freedom's between, Viktor Frankl tells us this, right? So here's the freedom. Well, stimulus, thought, response. I would just respond. Well, an amazing thing happened. I'll just shortcut the whole thing by saying I had a period of time in India where this thinking mind, this incessant chatter, it just stopped. Look, I don't know how to stop it. I don't know how to stop it now. I certainly didn't know how to stop it then, but it just stopped. It stopped for a number of days, for a stretch of a good couple weeks. And I didn't even notice it. Manuela stopped me on the way in the stairwell running up to the top of Ramana Towers to get a teaching. We were doing gentle healing, something else I didn't know anything about, but I was in. Anyway, Regina was like doing the lesson and a little bit of light teaching on the roof. And I remember I went to go up the stairwell and Manuela stopped and she looked at me and she goes, "It's gone, isn't it?" I said, "What?" She goes, I don't know what she said, like your mind or the thinking mind or thoughts. I don't know what she said, but she said that all that thinking. I thought, and I looked and I was like, yeah, I just thought I was feeling so much better. I didn't even know that that's what happened. But once she asked me, I checked and it was sure enough that incessant, you're doing it wrong. And do they like you? And what are you wearing? And oh my God, what are you wearing now? And like all of that just stopped. And I just inhabited this freedom. Kate tells how she loved every morning. She couldn't wait to see me to see what kind of crazy ass getup I had on, because I would literally stand in front of all these scarves and all these skirts and all these shirts. And Regina said, just ask what you should do. So I said, what should I wear? And I would just pick this stuff. I'd put it right on and I'd walk out so proud. I mean, I looked like a very, very colorful ink blot. So it was wonderful. And I'm running around, I'm wearing skirts anyway. Okay. So that was beautiful. It was wonderful. And then I met Kate after the Awakening Together trip ended, that pilgrimage ended. And I went north and met Kate and we sat with Muji. And that's where the song comes from. It's Muji's Sangha, because we just went and sat. And with a silent mind and Muji, it's just like, there you are. What else, it's like, what else do there was nothing. There was just presence, right? We've all touched into this. So that was amazing. So anyway, we come back. So you come back, right? And I come back and I just, Reggie doesn't even, my dog doesn't even know me. He doesn't know me, like, because I don't have any of those smells. It takes about 4 days to all of a sudden when I started, I guess, smelling like me again. Anyway, the whole thing was bizarre. But what happened when I came back was, slowly but surely, the mind came back, right? Eventually the mind, like, I don't know. I think I was wearing some of this when I first got back, and then I woke up one morning, mind's like, yeah, you're not going to put that on. And I'm, oh, okay. So I put back on my jeans and I put back on my sweats, just slowly but surely. And then I bought all this Indian food. And then one morning I heard, yeah, you're not going to eat that. I thought, oh, okay, I'm not going to eat that. So slowly but surely, mine came back. I did not have any skills about listening to my mind. I probably didn't even recognize it. I can't even tell you I recognize it. And, but what happened was, there was this announcement that, like Jacqueline and Regina and several others were going to go out to New Mexico to do this thing called an enlightenment intensive. I had no idea what that meant, but they were going to go back. They were going to be going. And then I had some friends from my church in New Jersey that were also going to go to this thing called enlightenment intensive, which I misunderstood as to be 3 days of silence. I misunderstood and thought I had to be silent for three days. That terrified me. I really hadn't probably been silent for 10 minutes, except when I was sleeping. But I thought, I'm going to do it because I was so tight again and everything felt awful again. And I just thought, let me just get back to this group. Like, let me get back to Jacqueline. Let me get back to Regina. Let me go out to New Mexico and do whatever this thing is. Because I just thought, well, maybe I just had no idea. Anyway, I show up to this enlightenment intensive. And it turns out it's a very, very highly structured dyad retreat. Dyad means two. You sit in partners and you have one question, right? Either it's like, someone asks you, tell me the truth of who you are, or tell me the truth of what you are. And the way this was set up is you do these all day long. They're like 40 minutes long. You get 4 turns, you get 5 minutes each. And I thought, I don't know who I am. I don't know, but I know how to try to play along. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna sit. I'm gonna try to sit. I'm super fidgety. I'm trying to sit still. I'm trying to look in their eyes. I'm sweating because it's just so uncomfortable. But slowly but surely, over these 3 days, that knot, that tightness, that incessant self-criticism starts to fall away again, and I get a little glimpse of how I felt in India. I had no idea how or why. I just knew that there was something about sitting, about the structure, and I also didn't realize at the time that it had to do with the intention. I know now that there's two ingredients, intention and surrender, right? Remaining in that place where intention meets surrender will set your practice and your life on fire. I didn't know that then. Here's what I knew then. What I knew then is we were given an intention. And the way we were taught to do what they call the technique in this enlightenment intensive, we were taught to remind ourselves each time it was our turn to speak of our intention. So I had nothing else to hold on to at all. I didn't know how to do it differently. I didn't think I had any idea how to do it better. I thought I'm going to go with, and they wrote it on the board. So each time I said, I have the intention to have a direct and conscious experience of the truth of what I am. Now, I had no idea what this truth of what I am thing is. I didn't even know that. Like when Regina would say things like, I just want to know truth. I thought, I just want to not feel awful. Like I did not have any idea what she was talking about, but I could see the way it lit her up, that I appreciated it, like I respected it. I just didn't understand it. But I continued to bring myself back to this intention. I intend to have a direct and conscious experience of the truth of what I am. So let me fast forward now just for a moment to read to you one of the prayers we've been saying when we do centering prayer practice, which is basically, it's just 20 minutes of silent sitting, letting go of your thoughts, but it's called centering prayer. So let me just see if I can get to this. I think I can. Let me read you this prayer we've been saying from Father Keating, because it kind of puts it all in a quote. Father Keating is a priest who helped usher in a kind of revived contemporary contemplative prayer practice in the Catholic Church and in all places that he could talk to. He was very multi-faith. There's another word for that, but okay. Here's what he writes. Father Keating writes, a creative vision releases an enormous amount of energy and can transform society beyond our wildest dreams. What I know now is what was happening there is I kept saying, I intend to have a direct and conscious experience of the truth of what I am. Even though my mind couldn't fill in a bunch of spiritual teachings, my heart heard it. Is how I want to say it. The truth of what I am heard it. I didn't know that. I just trusted these people who were putting on the Enlightenment Intensive, because they too were on our journey in India. I had met them there. So they were already like deeply in my heart. I didn't know them. They spent one day with us and then said, it's not going to work for us. And they left, but I met them. So I knew them. So I trusted them. So Father Keating, a creative vision releases an enormous amount of energy and can transform society beyond our wildest dreams. He goes on to write, the power of the stars is nothing compared to the energy of a person whose will has been freed from the false self system and who is thus enabled to co-create the cosmos together with God. So what I was touching into was all this energy being released during these exchanges in the dyads. Now, how does that happen? I had someone write to me, and probably, maybe, this whole homily is the result of this one email I got from a Awakening Together member who's just incredibly wise and devoted. And I'm not sure she always knows just how wise and devoted she is, but it's perfectly obvious to anyone who listens. She wrote and said, got this prompt to do the dyad retreat, but what, I don't even know, what is it? What does it even mean? And she said, and listen, I don't want to cry the whole time. That can't be helpful. I don't want to do that. So can you, so I got this email as I was I wasn't facilitating, I was adminning the Sanghas the New Guru retreat. And I just kept holding her question in my heart. How is that even helpful? And so the answer is exactly what Angelo DiLullo points us to, that Fran just read, right? When it comes to the subject of awakening, when our desires to know the truth of ourselves, the only place we need to look is what gets in the way of that truth. We already are that truth. We have no idea how to beat our hearts. We have no idea. We woke up this morning, we were given life again. And I know because we're given it every day, sometimes we're not quite as present to it. But there's plenty of people, statistics tell us, that did not wake up this morning to be given this gift. And we've all been given it. And so this true nature is living us, living as us, living through us. It's beating our hearts. It's making these words. It's whatever's listening to all these words right now is that divine intelligence that you are, that I am, that we are, that is, right? And so the way Angelo describes this is, why do we need practices if we are this? If we already are this true nature, which we are, right? They used to say in the dyad, they call them enlightenment intensives, in the dyad retreats, they used to say, try to relax, because you can't not be the truth of what you are. I thought, well, that makes sense. That's true. I can't not be the truth. If it's truth, I can't not be it. And so they would just invite us to relax and just keep using the technique. And the technique is, you get in touch with your intention, right? Have a direct and conscious experience of the truth of what you are. When it's your turn to speak, you get 5 minutes. Someone else keeps the timer. You get in touch with that intention. And then what you do is you just drop in and you listen. For what? Anything. What do you mean anything? Anything. You listen for sounds, you listen for feelings, you listen for words, image, whatever, anything. And the technique is, as soon as you discover this object, right? Maybe it's a memory, maybe it's feelings, maybe it's a bird, whatever comes in, at that point, if your eyes are closed, you open them. If your eyes are already open, you just look at your partner who's sitting across from you, and you get across what just came in. That's it. Oh, I just had this memory when I was 6 and I walked into school and I was really scared. Now, here's the thing. That if that's the only flash I got, I stop right there. See, that's the surrender. I get to the cross, and then I don't add to it. I don't have that be the prompt to then tell me all about my 6th grade teacher and how that year was either fabulous or horrible. Like, I don't go with it. I literally just get across what flashes up in me. The thought, the feeling, even if it's a bird, I hear a bird, you just come right back. So why do we do that? We do that because separation cannot be found, Angelo says, can never be found outside of thought, outside of the movement of mind. So we can't blame perceptions of division, isolation, and struggle on reality. It's not reality's fault that we look through veils we constantly create with thoughts and preconceptions. Thoughts and preconceptions. They're always firing. Have you noticed? Of course you have. You wouldn't be here if you haven't noticed. So in this practice, in the dyad practice, in centering prayer, we notice it, we just let it go, we come back to our intention. In this practice, that's a top-down practice. This is a bottom-up practice. We notice it, and we turn right away, and we get to the cross. Yep, I see that flash, 6th grade, I walked in, I can still see the walls, but I drop it right then, and I go back out. What that allows is it allows this momentum of mind that is always being the veil between us and this vibrant true nature that we are. What we do is we communicate that out. By communicating, it drops. Like it, and if the 6th grade memory comes back again, another aspect, you get that across. But then you drop it as soon as it's done. You don't run with it. If identification happens, if you come back in and you listen again, and you're like, yeah, that was a horrible year. If that thought comes into your mind, now you get that across. 6th grade was a horrible year when I was 6 years old. You get that across, but you only say what you need to say to communicate what you're in touch with, right? So this is Angelo. The best way I can explain the seeming contradiction between needing a practice and not needing a practice is that our nervous systems are particularly good at maintaining momentum. Without needing to remind them to do so, they perpetuate ingrained patterns and neurological processes that make up our internal experience. So what I was taught to do in these dyad practices, okay, so I went that first time with the crew, and something just said, you got to go back. Like something felt a little bit freer. I didn't know what. So I proceeded, they had them about every 2 months. I proceeded to fly back to New Mexico, not an easy place to get to. And then it isn't even in like Santa Fe or Albuquerque. You had to take a shuttle or get a bus or rent a car to get to their place in the forest to do this. But I did it every 2 months for, I don't know, a year or two. Because now I can say, because these perpetuated ingrained patterns and neurological processes that made up my internal experience, that's what I would get across to my partner. As soon as I got across, it fell away. And I just became just a little bit lighter and just a little bit freer. And he says, Angela, this is especially true of patterns of thoughts. It's only the thoughts that create the separation. Separation can't be found outside of thought. So what is a practice? A practice is the act of unpracticing these habituated tendencies, right? This momentum of mind that causes us to perceive reality as divided. See, life and our familiar surroundings reactivate this separation operating system. We see from separation, so we see separation. Ideas leave not their source. So we need a practice, if we're so called, and if it's the time, that breaks that pattern. So in the dyad practice, we break it one communication at a time, one getting across the best I can a time. And so these ingrained patterns, I wouldn't even see. But when I sat there for 3 days and all I held as my true north is the intention to have a direct and conscious experience of the truth of what I was. That's all I held. So you literally, so you have eating contemplation. As you're eating, who is eating? What is eating? What is this? As you're walking, what is eating? And sometimes it's very challenging, but once the desire to break out of this habitual patterning becomes alive, this practice becomes the container that gives everyone the opportunity to not only have a direct experience, but to recognize it as such. Like we have direct experiences all the time. Like we'll look at a sunset. You're no longer thinking about your to-do list or what happened tomorrow or what happened yesterday. In that moment, it's you and the sunset. Our heart opens wide and it's undifferentiated reality. We think it's the sunset. We've all heard this many times. It's not the sunset. It's the fact that you were completely present, not distracted by the movement of mind. So what are the qualities of a good practice? First, a good practice puts attention on what's immediately happening. Well, that's all you do in this dyad practice. That's all I did each time I went back there. I told what's here right now. I got that across. The reason these thoughts keep coming, these feelings keep coming, is because there's these loops that happen, right? You can call them samskaras, you can call them the undifferentiated significances of the mind, call them anything you want, but they're loops. Once you get them fully across to another human who just receives, the energy that kept them going can dissipate. So the subconscious is always trying to unload. It's just that we can push them away. Abigail read us this morning. Basically, she gave this entire homily this morning. This is from Corinthians. An empty shell has been emptied, and it knows itself is empty. Okay. A shell that has not been empty knows its own thoughts. Do not fear the thoughts that are in your mind. Do not fear that they do not belong there, and so you're guilty. The thoughts in your mind seem to come to you of their own accord. You are not to be judged guilty for this. Practice. This is NTI Corinthians, chapter, I think, 7. What's practice? Practice is the answer until you know yourself to be the empty shell. No, this is an effective method of practice, and there is a method that will seem to make the practice less useful. The effective method is to clear your thoughts by letting them pass upward. The less effective method is to press them back down from where they. So to let the thoughts pass upward, you must remember to trust in me. So what the entire practice is for 3 days, highly structured, is trusting in our true nature. Trusting in true nature, not only in us and our partner. Angelo also talks about that there's like kind of two parts of us, right? There's this part that wants to dig in, uproot the illusions, the delusions that keeps us thinking and acting in ways that we suffer. Well, when you're the speaking partner, you get to keep getting those across. You say just enough to capture what came up. You don't say more, you don't say less. You don't filter it out. You don't press it back down. You just let them come up. You get them across, you let them go. And he says, there's this part that wants to wake up from the illusion, right? I might call this our natural intention to live in truth and dispel illusion. This intention is powerful. And when it is prevalent in our experience, it's truly a blessing. What I watched this week with Sanga's The New Guru is a joint intention held by everyone. We actually spend time in that retreat reviewing our intention, the intention of awakening together, right? We are an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. A group that is aligned and holds that intention allows the energy, all that energy Father Keating talked about, to leave being held in. So that keeps bringing thoughts, and it allows us to get freer and freer. But there's this other side. It's the last thing I want to mention in my last remaining, like maybe 2 minutes. There's also a side to us that has no intention. It is always at rest. This side of us wants to open to the moment and let life permeate us. This is what I really fell in love with these dyad retreats I went to in the very, very beginning. I listened. I listened to someone for 5 minutes, nonstop, which I wouldn't have told you I was a terrible listener, but I honestly, I was the kind of listener that as soon as I heard something I could help with, I would interrupt you so I could let you know I had the answer. And it was so well-meaning. It was so, and I'm just going to redirect you to something more appropriate. That's how I conversed. I just thought that's how that little hustle for self-worth. If you think I'm helpful, you'll keep me around, right? And you know what I mean? You'll love me. I mean, it was just, and so what this did, for 5 minutes, it broke me of that, because for 5 minutes, there was a side of me that just wants to open to the moment, just wants to let life permeate us. Angelo again, it wants to let life overtake us. It is naturally attuned to the mysterious and the unknowable. It trusts surrender. It even trusts suffering. You sit right there, and for 5 minutes, your partners get in touch with all this stuff. They're following the technique, so they're getting it across. And you are just there with them. You are what Corinthians talks about, the love that is patient, the love that is kind. It doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it's not proud, it doesn't dishonor, it doesn't judge. You get to be perfect allowing. So you get to practice both parts of what you are. And Angelo says, most of us tend towards one or the other, but all of us can find both if we're willing to look. It might take some practice, patience, and contemplation, but it can be done. And he says, if you're able to find both of these aspects of your interface with reality, then you have found that sweet spot where practice becomes immensely powerful. Remaining in that place where intention meets surrender will set your practice and your life on fire. So eventually they had like 5-day enlightenments and I would go out to those, and I could just see how more and more I would break the habit of being Anne. I would break the habit of being myself. And while at times it may seem scary, what rushed to fill the quote void was true nature, right? And that's when Corinthians says love never fails, right? It always perseveres. So my prayer for everyone is the prayer in the cloud of unknowing. And maybe I'll just end with this. The Cloud of Unknowing is a 14th century text that is the basis of anonymous texts about contemplative prayer. That's the basis of the centering prayer practice. It comes from the Cloud of Unknowing. And the Cloud of Unknowing invites us to be courageous enough to surrender our mind and our ego to the realm of unknowing, to this cloud of unknowing, at which point we may begin to glimpse the nature of God, the divine expression that we are, that all of us is. And that's why the Sangha is the new guru, because we're all like facets of a diamond, and the light shines through us all differently. And we get a chance to notice the stuff that brings up our stuff. We can let that go. And we can notice the stuff that opens our heart, and we can lean into that. We can start to find the sweet spot. And that's the opportunity that every practice, whether it's centering prayer, whether it's dyads, whether it's contemplation, every practice, when our why is held in the heart, every practice leads us home. And so here's the last thing I want to say before we play our closing song. Boy, that goes fast. This is a song that as we waited in line for Muji 8 years ago, they would play. And my prayer is that you don't have to go to India, you don't have to sit with Muji, you don't have to do dyads, you don't have to do centering prayer. But my prayer for all of us is through our own directly encountering our own delusions and doing our own investigation, that this song becomes our living truth, all of us. And it's called The Lord is Here. Thank you. So the donate link is in the chat. We're a church. We rely on your donations, and we give back where we're fed. So to end, I just want to, the invitation is to find the practice that lets us move from inhibited to inhabiting what's actually happening, the way life is coming through. And to quote my friend, Fran Hamilton, if it's hard, it's worth doing. Thank you. Thank you all.
You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.